In October of 2019, a Google executive promised that Stadia would run games faster than the console on your desk. 3 years later, Google killed it. The executive was Maj Bakar, Stadia's vice president of engineering, and he was talking to a magazine. "Not as fast as your console," he said, "faster." The word Google used for that promise was negative latency, and the idea was that the system would predict which button you were about to press and press it slightly before you did. Engineers read that and laughed because your inputs still have to travel to a data center and the pixels still have to travel back, and light has a speed limit. But here is the part everyone got wrong about Google Stadia, including the people doing the mocking. The streaming worked. When Stadia launched a month later, the hard part, the part that was supposed to be impossible, was genuinely, measurably fine. Stadia did not die of latency. It died of something much stupider, and the cause was a single architectural decision that was completely correct. Stadia was announced at the Game Developers Conference in March of 2019, and the pitch was the most Google pitch imaginable. Delete the hardware. No console, no graphics card, no downloads, no patch downloads at 2 in the morning. The game runs on a machine in a Google data center, the video is streamed to your screen, and your controller inputs travel back the other way. Click a link inside a YouTube video, and you are playing the game about 5 seconds later, on a laptop that could not otherwise have run it at all. It launched on the 19th of November 2019 with a $130 Founders Edition. And the reviews of the technology were, honestly, mostly impressed. It looked good. It held together. Google had gone and solved the engineering problem that everybody assumed was the entire problem. Then it turned out that was not the entire problem, because a game streaming service with no games on it is just a very expensive way to stream nothing. So why were there no games? This is the part almost nobody covers properly, and the answer is not laziness or bad luck or even Google's attention span. It is architecture. Stadia's servers ran Debian Linux, and games on Stadia rendered through Vulkan, an open cross-platform graphics API. If you have never shipped a game, that sentence sounds like a neutral technical detail. It is not. It is the whole story. Essentially, every large game in the world is built for Windows and renders through DirectX, which is Microsoft's graphics API. Linux and Vulkan are a different operating system and a fundamentally different rendering path, which means Stadia could not simply receive the games industry's back catalog the way a new storefront can. Every single title had to be ported, real engineering work, done by the studio, paid for out of the studio's budget. Now compare that to a console. A PlayStation is also its own closed platform with its own tooling, and studios port to it constantly because there are more than 100 million PlayStations out there. Stadia was asking for a comparable investment while having, in the practical sense, nobody. That produces the trap that actually killed it. No players, so no publisher wants to fund a port. No ports, so there are no games worth showing up for. No games, so no players arrive. Every new platform in history hits some version of this, and there are exactly 2 known ways out of it. You buy your way out with exclusive first-party games that nobody else has, or you make porting so cheap that it is nearly free. Google tried the first one. It hired Jade Raymond, a genuinely serious industry figure, and stood up Stadia Games and Entertainment to build original titles. On the 1st of February 2021, 14 months after launch, Google shut that studio down. It had not released a single original game. Google's own stated reason was that it had underestimated the time and the cost of making blockbuster games, which is a remarkable thing to discover after starting a game studio. The second escape route was the porting toolkit, translation libraries that automatically convert a Windows game's DirectX calls into Vulkan calls, so a studio could bring a game over without rebuilding its renderer. Google shipped that in July of 2021, 20 months after launch, and 5 months after it had already given up on making its own games. Both exits existed. Google took the expensive one first, quit it, and arrived at the cheap one late. If you like watching a failure get taken apart at the level of the actual decision, subscribe. This channel does one dead company a week, and the cause is almost always structural rather than personal. Here is the reframe I want to leave you with, because the usual version of this story is lazy. The usual version is Google kills its products, so nobody trusted Stadia to last. That is true, and it genuinely did not help, but it describes the reputation, not the mechanism. The mechanism is this. Linux and Vulkan were the right call. Google's real superpower on this planet is running enormous fleets of cheap, identical, efficient machines inside its own data centers. Debian and Vulkan are how you do that at scale. A Windows and DirectX fleet would have cost more per machine, forever, on hundreds of thousands of machines. So the architecture optimized hard for the thing Google was world-class at, and in doing so, quietly moved the cost of the entire platform onto people who did not work at Google. Every dollar Stadia saved on infrastructure turned into a dollar that some studio in Montreal or Warsaw had to spend porting an engine for an audience that did not exist yet. The efficiency was completely real. It was just paid for by strangers who had no particular reason to pay it. That is the thing worth carrying out of this. An architecture decision is also a decision about whose budget absorbs the difficulty. And if that budget belongs to someone outside your company, it is not a saving. It is a bill you cannot make anyone pay. Google announced the shutdown on the 29th of September 2022, and Stadia stopped working on the 18th of January 2023, 3 years and 2 months after it launched. Then Google did something genuinely unusual and, to its credit, decent. It refunded almost everything. All the hardware bought through the Google Store, every game and every add-on purchased through the Stadia Store. Subscription fees were not refunded, but the purchases were. Thousands of people who had bought into a platform that died simply got their money back, which is close to unheard of. The technology did not vanish either. The streaming stack survived inside Google and went on to be used elsewhere, and the industry quietly settled on a consensus that Stadia had been basically right about where games were heading and simply far too early to survive being right. Which is its own species of failure and arguably the bleakest one. Not being wrong. Being correct in a way that could not pay for itself. There is a pattern here that should look familiar if you have been around this channel. Google Glass had a physics budget it could not meet. Stadia had a porting budget it could not meet. Both died with the core technology basically working, which is the specific way that engineering-led companies tend to fail. If you want the version where the laws of physics themselves send the invoice, a device that had to be light enough to wear all day, cool enough to sit against your skin, and powerful enough to be worth wearing, and could only ever be 2 of those 3 at once, that story is on the channel now, and the link is on screen.